For many Australians watching their navies decline, the situation at sea is a story of two deep crises unfolding simultaneously. The first is well known, the submarine gap, a decade-long window of vulnerability before nuclear-powered AUKUS boats arrive. The second is less discussed, but equally urgent, the slow-motion collapse of the surface fleet. The 8 Anzac-class frigates are being progressively retired, worn out after decades of hard service. Their intended replacement, the Hunter-class program, has been cut from 9 ships to just 6. Costs have ballooned to $44 billion, and the first hull is now delayed until at least mid-2032. The Royal Australian Navy faces the real prospect of dropping to just 9 surface combatants by the end of this decade. This twin crisis forced Canberra into a dramatic pivot, and it turned Japan into an unlikely strategic partner at precisely the right moment. On April 18, 2026, a historic moment unfolded aboard the JS Kumano, a Japanese Mogami-class frigate docked in Melbourne. Australian Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister Richard Marles, alongside Japanese Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi, signed the Mogami Memorandum. This implementing agreement formalized the acquisition of the first 3 upgraded Mogami-class frigates under Project C-3000, with delivery of the lead vessel scheduled for 2029. These 3 ships will be built in Japan to meet the urgent fleet requirement, while a subsequent 8 are planned for construction at Henderson, Western Australia, as part of a wider program valued at up to 20 billion Australian dollars. It was, as Defence Industry Minister Pat Conroy stated, the fastest acquisition for the Royal Australian Navy in peacetime. After decades of procurement paralysis, Australia had finally secured a partner that could deliver proven warships off an active, modern production line.
For a frustrated Australian public and many defense commentators, the Mogami Agreement is being received not just as a purchase, but as something resembling a rescue. The Hunter-class frigate had become a symbol of chronic acquisition failure, repeatedly delayed, massively expensive, at approximately $7.3 billion per hull, and still years away from delivering its first ship. In stark contrast, the upgraded Mogami offered a quantum leap in firepower and efficiency without waiting another decade. Crucially, it was Japan's readiness that cemented this perception. Tokyo was willing to guarantee priority to Australia for the upgraded vessels, ahead of its own maritime self-defense force. That gesture, diverting scarce early production slots to an ally in need, is what elevated the deal from a commercial sale to a strategic lifeline. The strategic logic behind the deal is devastatingly clear. The Mogami packs a 32-cell vertical launch system, which, through quad packing of evolved Sea Sparrow missiles, gives it the ability to carry up to 128 air defense missiles, quadruple the capacity of the Anzac-class. It achieves this with a crew of just 90 to 92 personnel, roughly half the complement of an Anzac. At the signing ceremony, Minister Koizumi himself pointed to this as a decisive factor in Australia's choice, a nod to severe personnel shortages plaguing the Royal Australian Navy. This is not a stopgap, it is a generational leap in capability that simultaneously solves a crewing crisis and a firepower gap. This triumph for the Japan-Australia defense relationship carries a deep sense of historical redemption. In 2014, Tokyo had offered its advanced Soryu-class submarine to replace the Collins-class fleet, only to lose to a French design in 2016, a deal that later collapsed spectacularly, paving the way for AUKUS. For Japan, that submarine rejection stung. The Mogami Memorandum represents more than a contract, it is a restoration of faith. It vindicates Japan's 2-decade push to become a normal, reliable defense exporter, and demonstrates that Tokyo can now beat European shipbuilders on time, trust, and technology.
While the surface fleet receives its lifeline, the submarine crisis remains unresolved and painfully alive. The Collins-class boats are aging rapidly, and the first nuclear-powered Virginia-class submarine from the United States is not expected until the late 2030s, with the joint SSN AUKUS arriving in the 2040s. A May 2026 report from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, authored by former senior defense intelligence official Richard Gray, has publicly urged the government to explore leasing a handful of advanced conventional submarines from Japan, specifically the lithium-ion-powered Taigei-class, as insurance against AUKUS delays. However, this is debate, not government policy. Foreign Minister Penny Wong has explicitly dismissed the idea, stating, "The Albanese government is not considering Japanese submarines as an alternative to AUKUS. We have a clear AUKUS plan, that is our focus." The drumbeat may be growing in think tank circles, but officially there is no plan B. Perhaps the most intriguing element of this strategic convergence is not only naval. On the same April day in Melbourne, ministers also locked in something subtle but significant for the air domain. Japanese Air Self-Defense Force personnel will be embedded to observe live testing of Australia's MQ-28A Ghostbat autonomous combat drone through March 2027. There is no sale, no transfer of source code, only a shared tactical education. This familiarization is a critical first step toward integrating a loyal wingman capability with Japan's F-35B carriers, the Izumo and Kaga. While not a barter, the parallel tracks are unmistakable. Australia shares aerial autonomy with Japan. Japan shares maritime production capacity with Australia. Two middle powers are quietly building the architecture of a genuinely independent Pacific deterrence force. The critical milestones are now set. The first Mogami frigate is scheduled to be delivered in 2029. Any further delay in the Hunter program will only amplify the narrative that Japan rescued Australia from its own procurement failures. On the submarine front, the next AUKUS update will be measured against the growing chorus, however unofficial, calling for a Japanese conventional backup. Meanwhile, the Ghostbat observation period runs through early 2027, and Japan's assessments will shape its own future combat drone program. The message from 2026 is clear. Canberra has learned that time is the most lethal weapon in the Pacific. Japan didn't save the Australian Navy out of charity. It sold Australia time. 3 hulls by 2029, a production line at Henderson, and an unspoken option on the submarines of tomorrow. In an era of great power competition, that is the most valuable currency of all.